Howdy, folks, and welcome to TuneScores, where we put our ears on the line so you don't have to, but we still encourage you to anyway. My name's Carrie Nightingale, and with me, as always, is Kevin Niebrick. Kevin, how you doing?
Better than I deserve.
That's kind of a backhanded compliment to yourself, I suppose, but we'll take it. I hope you're excited because we have played everyone's favorite game. Once again, it's YouTube Roulette. And this time we picked the hip-hop genre, which I think that's something we should probably note for everyone at home that we know next to nothing about. I don't think either of us is very well versed in hip-hop, old or new. So this was an experience. It was a way for us to broaden our horizons. And I think the results are going to speak for themselves. So, Kev, we picked 3 songs. We've listened to them. We've granted them TuneScores. The first one is Life is Good featuring Drake by the artist Future. The second one is Ballin featuring Roddy Ricch by Mustard. And the third one is Love Through the Computer by Gucci Mane. I think we're going to go in that order. I'll go ahead and tell you, I took a sneak peek at the scores that we shared on our spreadsheet. And Kev, I rated each of these lower than you did, ever so slightly, possibly, but lower. So I'll go ahead and prosecute each one. Let's start with Life is Good. For the composition of Life is Good, this sounds like it's 2 songs. And for the first song in this diptych, there's some rich harmony and a relaxed rhythm. Not much by way of melodic movement out of Drake, but it's okay. And then it changes over to the trap song, and it still seems somewhat relaxed, but it loses a lot of musicality at that point. It's just a bumping bass note and a lot of trap 30-second note hi-hats over some really mumbly, braggadocious rap lyrics. The composition here was rated 2.3 for me. Kev, how did you feel about it?
Well, first, the Gesundheit. I heard you. Was that a sneeze, or what was that word? Diptych?
Diptych.
Nice. So Future received a 2.6 out of 4 for the composition for this one. As a standard hip-hop track, as far as I know. Sounds somewhat familiar. Nothing really stands out to me as particularly noteworthy with regard to composition for this piece. Lyrically, I found this piece to be a little subpar. I tried to find a favorite line, but I came up empty. And in fact, I lowered my score as a 2.2 out of 4. For performance, Future earned a 1.0 out of 1.2. For production as well, I don't have anything negative to say about the performance or the production. I thought it was pretty good. How did you feel about it?
For Life is Good's performance, again, it's 2 songs, and this will come up in the production again. Drake's performance here sounded a lot more solid and less mumbly than Future's did. For both accuracy and feel, which I would classify as the emotionality that's put into the song by the performer, I rated the performance at 0.5 out of 1.2, and also 0.5 out of 1.2 for the production. The arrangement, and this is for the audio-only version, which is the one that I listened to several times, not the music video, which I had originally found. It sounds very uneven. It is 2 songs, and really I'm only willing to listen to the first one. And lastly, for the appeal, this rated pretty low, but it's not the worst out of today's set of songs for me. This rated at a 0.8 out of 3.6. I get it, Future. You have more money, fame, success, whatever, than the rest of us. So life is good. Oh, fuck, it's the song title. Woo! I can feel a little of the emotionality from Drake's verse, talking about having to work on the weekend and getting accused of looting somebody's house to get fancy watches and shit, but I just don't really care. So Life is Good, featuring Drake by Future, rated at a 4.1 out of 10 TuneScore. Kev?
I gave Future a 0.8 out of 3.6 possible points for appeal. If there was emotion, it missed me. This piece isn't innovative in any way that I can hear. It's all flash and little substance. As a result, repeat listenability is also low. I don't doubt that this guy has talent, but this track is a throwaway.
In Texas, Kev, they call that either all sizzle and no steak or all hat and no cattle.
A lot of good sayings coming out of Texas, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So for the song Life is Good, featuring Drake by Future, final tune score is 5 points out of 10.
Okay. So we weren't too terribly far off. I feel like our horizons were expanded twice because this is basically 2 songs for the price of 1. And that price technically is free because we listened to it on YouTube and probably just had to watch a few ads. So not too bad. So there you have it, folks. That's Life is Good. It's a track by Future. It's got Drake on it. Kind of like 2 songs. That's about as much mileage as we're going to get out of that track. For our next track, we've got Ballin' featuring Roddy Ricch by Mustard. Now, the impression that I got, Kev, was that Mustard is the producer. He made the beat for this track. And all the vocals, except for that producer tag or watermark, I guess you could call it, at the very beginning, beat by Mustard, or all the other vocals are done by Roddy Ricch, which might make people think this is a Roddy Ricch song. But the way titles and credits go, it's all about Mustard. I'll go ahead and start us off with the takedown of the composition. Now, this may be a little bit more because of the production angle, because I think they're samples, but this sounds overall very soulful. It's down to the chord structure on the organ or synthesizer, and some of the melodic embellishments on what sounds to me like a clean electric guitar. The lyrics have a couple really clever lines. Got a New Orleans bitch, man, that pussy voodoo, and trying to get the dojo like a sensei struck me as really goddamn funny. The rest, though, just seems to glorify the profit made from illegal activity, and it's a lot of self-aggrandizement. And where's the brand loyalty? You got Mercedes G-Wagon, you got Bentley Bentayga, Rolls-Royce, Maybach. Christ, just pick one already and stop flexing on broke chumps like me who drive a soccer mom's used Cadillac crossover. Your composition rated at a 2.4 out of 4 available points. Kev, how did you feel?
Mustard received a 2.9 out of 4 for composition. This one's really not a far departure from the piece we listened to by Future, but I appreciated the melody and the rhythm of this track a little bit more. As far as performance goes, similarly as well, high marks across the board, but Mustard earned a 1.1 out of 1.2 for performance. And that might be, I might be giving all the credit here to Roddy Ricch, but I thought the vocal delivery here was rhythmically pretty impressive. So ended up with a 1.1 out of 1.2 for performance and a 1.0 out of 1.2 for production. Again, no notes. Carrie, how did you feel about it?
I differ slightly in my assessment of the performance, particularly the feel. I get how the rhythmic nature of the lyric delivery could be considered complex, and it's done accurately, so that's fine, 2/3 credit there. The feel, though, it's so laid back. I don't get a lot of emotionality that's being imparted from Roddy Ricch, from the vocalist in this case, into the track. So 0.7 out of 1.2 for the performance, 0.8 out of 1.2 for the production. I had literally no notes on the production because I think most of that I already said when I talked about composition, because I think those are samples and I think they were good choices to make there. This song did appeal to me a little bit more so than at least the first one that we've discussed. I rated this at 1.6 out of an available 3.6 for the appeal. This has a great beat, and I can't deny that. If I'm just jamming, I might put on Ballin. But if I'm actively listening, I suspect there are a lot of other better ways to get a soulful fix out of a good beat. I couldn't think of any off the top of my head. That's because, frankly, this isn't a genre that I'm terribly familiar with. So overall, I rated this one at a 5.5 out of 10 TuneScore.
I gave Mustard a 1.2 out of 3.6 points for appeal. We were given some background info on the lyrics, giving the listener some context with which to better understand where he's coming from. Still, this track is mostly unrelatable braggadocio. I ended up with a 0.8 out of 1.6 for emotion, nothing for innovation, and a low repeat listenability score, 0.4 out of 1.6. Total of the segment was 1.2 for appeal, but the overall tune score was 6.2.
So there you have it. Our YouTube roulette spin of the wheel has led us to a song that was kind of like two songs, and then a song that's kind of like one song, but slightly better, slightly more appealing, slightly more listenable. I'm on pins and needles to find out how our little gamble works out for the third song. But we're going to have to wait because it's time for another short break. This one's brought to you by Famous Seamus's Cookies. The secret ingredient was going to be whiskey, but they drank it all before even preheating the oven. So you just get regular cookies. We'll be right back. Howdy, folks, and welcome back. For our final song, we've got Love Through the Computer by Gucci Mane. But before we do that, Kev, you mentioned something in your assessment of the appeal of the last song. I think you said unrelatable braggadocio. And I was thinking about that during the break. And I was thinking that all of this consumerism, it can't be healthy. And honestly, when everyone is singing about their consumption of the same luxury goods, what once had a sense of exclusivity about it loses that exclusivity. That's part of the reason why you get a Patek Philippe watch or a Rolls Royce or a Bentley Bentayga, is for the the exclusivity factor. But you lose that. What do you think, Kev?
No, I think you're right. If everybody's rocking Forgiatos, like, why are we spending so much money on them? Like, I don't know. It just kind of seems like we've confused worth with value, cost with value, as it were. I think that's weird.
I think you're absolutely right. And another thing that I've sort of noticed with that braggadocio element in these songs is everybody claims to be at the top. But if everybody's at the top, nobody's at the top, right?
I don't think that's necessarily true. I don't see that exactly. What I do see is, like, it's a show. It's a thing. It's like wrestling is fake, right? Like, the guy's driving the cool. What? Is this news? I'm sorry. Santa Claus isn't real either, by the way. No, it's just kind of. I think everybody by now knows that, like, the cars you're driving in the music videos are rentals. Like, they don't own that shit, and even if they do, like, I don't know. It's just kind of sad and mean to kind of like, oh, I'm glad that you have everything that you want now. Congratulations, but we don't. So, but you want us to pay you our money that we worked hard for your song that you wrote. Now that you have all the things in the world, like, that's just kind of douchey.
Well, I wonder if maybe that's part of the appeal. I think we found that I don't necessarily care for these songs, and particularly that self-aggrandizement aspect of what we get in the lyrics. And I think you don't either, Kev, but they very obviously appeal to some segment of the population because these tracks have millions to tens of millions. I think the Life is Good music video had like 1.5 billion views on it just on YouTube. There's very obviously a market for songs like this. And I wonder if part of that is, I'll call it the American dream because we live in America, but maybe it's part of the American dream. Maybe it's an element of, I'm a music listener. I hear about the success that this rapper is garnering, maybe I could do that too. And maybe that's why there's a boom of rap artists on SoundCloud. I don't know. Maybe this is something that we'll have to explore a little bit deeper.
And I would say that's a fair assessment. There's some hope there, something to aspire to, I suppose. I think it's really the message of this particular song. It's extremely shallow, and material goods being the end all be all. I don't know. I should say that the performance I thought was pretty all right. I like the performance of these songs. So maybe it's just the message from these songs that I don't appreciate. I feel like other songs by the same artist would probably get a higher score.
And, this is maybe it's the luck of the draw of YouTube Roulette. Found we typed in hip hop playlist on YouTube and picked a number and went with it. And we happened to land on 3 songs, well, at least the first 2 that we've talked about so far. We landed on songs that have a lot of the same things going on, or themes going on, really. But why don't we go ahead and talk about the 3rd song, and then let's figure out if we learned anything. Let's see if we really did broaden our horizons. So our 3rd song is Love Through the Computer by Gucci Mane. I'll talk about its composition first. I rated this at a 1.8 out of an available 4.0 for the composition. In the lyrics, there is a nice couplet. Fought the system every level, it was critical. Fuck the feds, state, civil, and municipals. That's a really kind of clever line. But that's about it. There's some implied harmonic movement within the bass line, but it doesn't sound special. The rhythm is okay, but it has a lot of the same 30-second note, programmed hi-hats, which kind of sounds annoying to my ears. So that's why it's a pretty low score on the composition from me. But Kev, tell us your thoughts.
Gucci Mane received 2.2 out of a possible 4 points for composition. I like the melody, but the credit for that should go to Zapp and Roger, who used it for their song Computer Love in 1986. That's all I have to say about that. Performance, GM earned a 1.0 out of 1.2 points for performance. No notes there. For production, GM earned 0.8 out of 1.2 possible points. There are a lot of elements to this track. There's a lot going on, but they kind of sound like they're constantly interrupting one another for attention, kind of like this show. But Carrie, what do you think about the performance and production of this one?
The singer saw a beautiful girl in a magazine, then wanted love on the computer, but this performance was phoned in. At least it keeps with the communication theme. The performance is rated at half credit, 0.6 out of 1.2. Same score on production, different reasons. I assume it must be hard coming up with a word to shout at the end of every line in the verse, but the arranger did it, so good for them. As far as appeal, I found Love Through the Computer to be the least appealing track out of the 3 that we listened to for this episode. It earned a full 1/9 credit for appeal. That's 0.4 out of 3.6. It all comes from the raw emotionality of the robot singing the chorus. At the very beginning of the track, I thought I heard some influencer sound that was familiar, but what I got out of several listens was just a suspicion that either Gucci Mane was attempting to recreate the success of Daft Punk's digital lover personas, but within a trap context, or that everyone involved in writing this song had a serious online porn addiction. I cannot imagine myself ever listening to this again. My overall tune score was 3.4 out of 10 for Gucci Mane's Love Through the Computer.
That might be the lowest score yet. I keep saying that, but I think it's true every time. I gave Gucci Mane 0.8 out of 3.6 for appeal. I did not like this one. Low scores for emotion, innovation, and repeat listenability. His overall tune score was 4.8.
Okay, well, there you have it. That's Love Through the Computer by Gucci Mane. Out of these 3 tracks that we listened to for the hip-hop genre YouTube Roulette, this was probably the least appealing. But I think that we still learned a few things. So if our intent at the outset was to broaden our horizons and learn a little bit more about the hip-hop genre, that we were not very familiar with at the beginning. I think we accomplished that. I noticed a few commonalities among these three tracks. Whether I like them or not, maybe that's for another day. I'm not done with my exploration of hip hop, and I'm sure that Kevin's not either. The commonalities that I noticed: one, it is very helpful to have features, someone else to come in and either rap or sing, whichever one you don't do. Two, you need to be able to project success and confidence in your lyrics, whether your hard work was legal or illegal, as we heard in all three of these songs. You have to be able to talk about it and hype yourself up, because it's entirely possible that no one else is going to hype you up for you. And third is that trap beat sound, that extremely rapid trilling of the programmed hi-hat that's becoming increasingly popular, but probably also familiar. I wonder how that's going to age. And lastly, I noticed there was actually some decent harmonic movement and some melodic accompaniment in these songs, which I wasn't necessarily expecting. I think maybe in my musical circles, I tend to hear a lot of get off my porch kind of people claiming that music these days just ain't what it used to be. It's terrible. All new music is awful. It lacks harmony. Nobody uses a decent chord progression. All of those arguments. But from what I heard, there actually was chord progressions in at least two of these three songs. So there is something going on there, a little bit more effort from writers and producers that I wasn't expecting, and I was pleased to hear. It gives it a little more feeling or emotionality in the composition. But those were a couple of the things that I noticed. Kev, how about you?
Well, I wouldn't say that you're wrong. I think that we played YouTube Roulette, and I think we got maybe a poor sample of songs here, is what we're looking at. I don't think, I think the music industry as a whole, you're going to see a lot of lazy writing, things like that. Just because a song is marketable doesn't mean that it's a good song. Just because a song is good doesn't mean it's very marketable. So I think that there's a fine line that you're trying to walk, where you want people to hear your song, but you want it to have some merit. And I think that the music industry as a whole, it's just very easy to get some of these things through. Boy bands, if you look at boy bands, I'm sure there's a lot of good, decent stuff in there. But a lot of it, I would imagine, is pretty much kind of just easily marketable stuff that they know they have an audience for. Somebody's going to listen to it. That's what sells. Country music has been like this for a while, since I've been listening. A lot of the pop country stuff is very, just kind of, it's not going to offend anybody. It's just kind of happy-go-lucky, stuff like that. I think you'll get that in any music genre. So I think that we got maybe a bad sample of songs from the hip-hop genre, but I imagine if we looked at these guys' other works, that we might enjoy them a little bit more.
So for our audience, if you want us to give other better tracks by these artists a listen, go ahead and give us a comment and let us know what might be better representative, what you think might appeal to us. You as the audience know me and Kev pretty well by now, so you know what appeals and what doesn't.
Yeah, pick any of the artists we listened to tonight and tell us what's your favorite song by those artists, and we'll give them a listen. Maybe we'll TuneScore.
Who knows? We'll have to save that for another day, though. For now, what we've come up with is some scores for some songs. That's basically what it boils down to. Well, all that said, I think it's time to end this episode. We had a lot of fun. We hope you did too. Go ahead and let us know in the comments if you agree or disagree, and what better songs by these artists do you like more. For now, that's been Kevin Niebrick. I've been Carrie Nightingale. We want to thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one. Be well.